Greetings, everybody, and welcome to Fridays at 4 today. I say that because, this Fridays at session is a free get together of teachers, but I've come to adjusting the time on occasion. It's not always at 5 like it used to be. Today it's at 4 Eastern. And I just want to give a heads up that our next session will not be in the afternoon. It will be at 12 noon in an upcoming session. So just know that every time you see one of these events, you want to note the time, okay? I'll start with just a little bit of that kind of housekeeping. You'll see behind me that we've just launched our Color Vowel Conference for English language educators. Raise your hand if you already knew about it just recently. Yeah, we just sent out the email. If you haven't seen the email, please check that you're getting those. Sometimes we find that it might be going off to spam, or it might be going to your promotions box, which if you're like me, I don't like to go to because it's just full of other stuff. So you can always move those over to your inbox. Lucky for you, I don't send out newsletters very often, so we don't spam you. Believe me, if anything, we under spam you, and I need to get better at sending more. But this is very exciting. This is our first ever conference for Color Vowel educators or anyone interested in teaching with the Color Vowel approach. We hope to bring together kind of a healthy mix of Color Vowel trained teachers and new people all together from all over the world. So check it out. I do have some links for you that I can share. Let's see here. Great. And I see I'm reading comments from each of you as well at the same time. Let's see here. Links. There we go. So if you go to colorvowel.com, our website, you will see on the front page an announcement and a link, but I've just added the link over here in the chat as well with some, you'll find all the information about everything from registration to housing to schedule and so forth. Okay. I'm glad to see that I see so many smiles about that. Let's see. Other housekeeping is about the upcoming sessions of Fridays at, and let me just touch on that. So this is our Fridays, our teacher community page. When you're home, you see the big banner. And if you go to events, you will see all 3 of our upcoming events. Sometimes I have more posted, but we typically have them once a month. Our next session will be on November 17th on the topic of accent and equity. That's at 12 noon Eastern. I'm pleased to say that we'll have our keynote speaker for the conference joining us. That's Gemma Archer. Will be joining us to engage in that dialogue about accent equity, what it is, why it's interesting and important, and how we can go about supporting it. And then we also have an upcoming session on December 8th in the afternoon. If you're interested in presenting at the conference, or if you think to yourself, what on earth would I have to say as a presenter at the conference? Come to this session, because it won't just be about writing a proposal. It'll really be about what you might want to say and share. So we'll be supporting people in brainstorming ideas. Okay. Any questions or comments about the conference or anything I've shown you?
Karen,
Yes.
you speak just a little bit, tell us, for those who are in the practicum right now and have just finished level 1, how this will not be just a repeat of that, what the kinds of things we talk about, learn, convince our boss to let us go, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so thank you for asking that. If it goes really well, I won't speak hardly at all at that conference, first of all. So just want to say that. I might give one talk, but I really hope to open the space to explore how Color Vowel and the approach is being used across contexts in real schools with our teachers. And our teachers meaning anybody who's using the chart. We may find people submitting proposals who have not formally been trained, but who maybe came across the chart 15 years ago. I don't know what's happening out there exactly. I just know a lot of good stuff is happening. I'll give you one example, Erin. I have a colleague who I know works with deaf and hard of hearing students in New York, and I know she uses the chart. I would love to learn more about what she does. She uses it to teach speaking. to hearing, hard of hearing and deaf students. And that's all I know. Wouldn't you like to know?
Mhm.
That's exactly the spirit of the conference. Years ago, I also had a choir director come up to our booth, and she said, "Oh, I've been using this for quite some time." And I said, "Really?" And she told me what she does. She was also an ESL teacher. And I said, "What? Tell me more, about using it with a choir." And she briefly said something that I would love to hear more about in a presentation, which was a choir can't sing in tune if they're not using the same vowel shape at the same time. And so I thought, well, I kind of know that, and yet I want to know more about how you use the chart with them. So just, those little kinds of, it really is about when, to use an idiom, when the rubber hits the road, right? That idea that when you really start using it out there, things happen, important things that force you to, say, make certain kinds of adjustments and create new things. So we want to know what teachers are doing and creating out there.
Well, Karen, sounds like you're actually creating this conference for yourself.
It's to entertain me. It is to entertain me. It's Jennifer. Yeah, Jennifer and Shirley and I thought, wouldn't that be fun? So yeah, a lot of us who've been around with it for a long time. Shirley, Laura, who created Color It Out, Jennifer, who we're all very eager to know what's happening out there beyond us, because we teach the basic training, but we're not in your classrooms. Yeah.
Mhm.
So Erin, thanks for that question, because that really helped me share what I vision here. Okay. You'll be seeing more. Do check your email to make sure you're getting letters, because I'll be sending out more about the conference and sharing videos that I'll be making to kind of highlight different features of the conference. But the last thing I'll say about it is it will be held at Planet Word, which is it's a word and language museum in Washington, D.C. It's worth a visit in its own right, but we have the rooms reserved for us. So everybody who comes will have access to the museum. And it's also going to be like the height of cherry blossom season. And it's about 5 blocks from the White House. So you're right downtown where all the gorgeousness is. And that's all I'm going to say, is it's going to be super fun. Okay. Beautiful. Well, today's topic is enhancing lessons with Color Vowel. It's in a way, it's kind of like, how can I do that with a group when I don't know who's coming? But that's sort of how you feel sometimes when you don't know which students are always coming, for that matter, right? We don't know what state of mind they're in, what levels they really are. So I figure if you do this every day, I can do this with you. Teachers who come from a variety of contexts, who work with a variety of students. Some of you, raise your hand if you teach a class where students drop in, or where you have new starters on a regular basis. Yeah, exactly. So on those kinds of days, you don't know exactly who you're teaching in advance, right? You have a gist, but maybe you don't know exactly. Great. How many of you resort or refer or look for written lesson plans that are out there, and then kind of say modify them to fit your needs? Does anybody look for lesson plans? Yeah, I would. if I were out there teaching on a daily basis, it's kind of nice to go out and see what's out there, and get ideas, and then form your own lesson plan from that. And that's what we're going to do today. Just because I don't have one particular context in mind, I thought I would just settle us in on one today. Okay, so I went online and I found a nice resource called, there's my pausing for you. Great. So I found English for Tutors. It's one of, I'm sure, thousands of websites out there that offer some lesson plans, but I thought this one was pretty neat, and I became a member by making a free account. It didn't take much. I'm not recommending it necessarily, but I'm just saying this is what we use today. Okay. And so far, I don't find anything bad about it. So that's neat. A couple things I like. I can choose to look at the free lessons, which fit my membership type. I can also then say, let's look at a particular level. And you know, with a group like you all, I'm just going to go ahead and pick an intermediate, kind of a low intermediate, and then it sorts it. And I don't think I need to do it by lesson right now or timing. And so before we got together today, I thought, well, let's do the first one, Petal Pals. It sounds kind of intriguing. The second one, Do Girls Like American Guys? That did not appeal to me. So I'll stick with the bicycles. So I pulled that up, which is right here. Okay. And I just took a look at the basic gist of the lesson. It's about biking. There's a warm up. They're going to compare two means of transportation. There's a video called The Bike Bus. It's kind of a major piece of it. We're going to watch that. There's some grammar that they've put into the lesson. Don't mind versus doesn't matter. And there's a plan. Okay. And then I can leave a comment. So then I went ahead and I downloaded the PDF. Okay. Now, let me just say one thing I was able to glean quickly for the sake of time is that as you go down, you'll see this is very much a sort of a textbook handout type activity. This is a matching. This is a fill in the gap. Look at these comments. We're not quite sure what we want to do with this. There is a teacher lesson plan version of this, by the way, with more instructions. But what I want you to notice is that many times these kinds of printed lesson plans, because they're printed, will favor print and writing. Meaning if you were determined to, you could operate a lot of this without a lot of talking. Do we agree? You can kind of say, do exercise 9, do exercise 10. And this would be a lot of looking and pencil work. And so it's safe to say in a lot of cases, when you come across these prepared lesson plans, that they're not going to have many strategies for bringing this lesson to life with spoken English. And that's kind of why I like these, honestly, because at least now I have some structure. I can pay attention to the resource they've given me and see what I want to use of this lesson, what I don't want to use, and meanwhile, how I want to infuse it with opportunities for speech, for students to actually use spoken English, okay? Now, you've been maybe with your eyes, you've been sort of gleaning what's here. What I'd like to do is sort of focus in on the heart of the lesson. The heart of the lesson is this video, okay? And I think what we can do is, I'm probably going to pause the recording of this session. So if you're watching this as a recorded session, I'll be sharing this YouTube link in the comments down below or down in the description. So you can watch this when I pause, okay? And the reason I want to play it, it's about 3 minutes long. We're going to play it twice. I'm going to play it once at regular speed. And then afterward, we're going to use it again for another reason, okay? When you're going to use a video like this, there's some wonderful advantages. And now I'd like to open up to the room. What are some of the advantages of using authentic video, meaning a video clip that's not made for learning purposes? Anyone want to sort of pitch in on that? Advantages.
Real world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
first of all, it's real world.
Yeah.
Yeah, its authenticity is its own pedigree, okay?
Students can relate to it.
Yeah, if it's well chosen, then it's something people can relate to. It doesn't have a stilted quality that prepared videos for instruction do sometimes.
They're listening to somebody else's voice in addition to the teachers.
Yeah, they get some of that access to other accents, maybe just other ways of speaking. Even when the accent isn't exactly different, at least it's someone else, maybe a person with simply a different voice. Anything else?
I think
These
some-
guys,
I was going to say, for example, whatever this is now, if they have success in class watching this video after we work with it, that may lead them to pursue other videos in the same YouTube channel, get them interested and have a little more confidence that they can access this material on their own at home as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you watch where you're getting your material from, like this is the Now This News channel, I can start to say, maybe this is something that they can safely go to find some interesting stories. Great. I liked this piece because it's very positive. There's so much out there that can just cause a lot of worry, and we're already pretty worried out there. So when it comes to ESL class, I like to try to keep it, feeling pretty good. Let's go ahead and listen to it, and I'll go ahead and stop. I will pause the recording. Okay, so we watched the video. It's delightful. There's a real temptation now to say, oh, forget the lesson plan I just looked at. I'll just devise a whole new lesson. Or I'll just keep those written kinds of activities for later in the lesson. And I can push in a lot of speaking practice before we get to all that written stuff. And then we can decide if we need to support the written stuff as well, right? You might recall in the original lesson plan, everybody, that the objective, what was the objective here? They sort of stated some objectives a little weakly, frankly. In this lesson, students will talk about the benefits and drawbacks. They'll learn phrases to agree and disagree with the speaker of the video, I guess. They'll find out collocations, meaning phrases, well-known phrases connected with bike driving, as well as find the difference between don't mind and doesn't matter. We could start getting into the lesson itself, but I think we need to spend time here. Having a clear objective and knowing what we want students to walk away with is going to guide everything. So I want to ask your opinion. Here, this is a little bit bigger for you. This is about as close as we get to the overview. There's no real objective stated in here, okay? If we look at the actual lesson, it also does not offer, let me see here, the teacher lesson plan. Let me just look here. Yeah, there's no objective here either, okay? So let me stop for a minute and just ask, raise a hand if you feel passionate about objectives. And if you don't, that's okay. I just want to know if somebody really is already coming to the table like a kind of a fanatic about objectives. Yeah. So Teresa is.
Well, not necessarily their objectives, but we use Intercambio, and I do go through the lessons, and I pull out pieces of grammar that I know are not everyday uses for them. And I punch those pretty hard in class. Like last week it was get them. And, I said, no, it's get them. So we had a lot of fun with get them, got them, got it, get it. And, and those kind of things, because that phraseology is new to a level 1. So yeah, I wanted to make sure I covered all of that. And I create a lesson plan that includes these points. And a lot of times I'll write everything on the board I want to cover, and then I'll bounce around the room and do lots of things and go back and cover it. So everybody knows it's up there.
Great. Yeah. So covering is an important part of an objective. The other part that we want to pay attention to and that we'll try to really look at today is how will we make sure that what we cover is what they can walk away doing to some extent. Either seeds are planted, the beginning of practice has started, an interest has been, say, sparked, and they're going to be able to build on today's experience in meaningful ways, right? I think asking this question helps ensure that we are not just picking the thing that's top of mind for us, for example, or the grammar point that comes up. And that's a little bit of what I see in this lesson plan that I'm not intent on tearing it down exactly, but I think having a critical eye on what it is that it provides is important. So if we look here, I can make this a little bigger for all of us. Okay, and this is the student lesson. We're going to start off with, what do we think? I like this, actually. Look at the pictures. What do they have in common? I would step off of the handout. We just put this up on the board, maybe with some images. So we could start off with a little dialogue, okay? And do some anticipation, the bike bus. But we still need to come back to this question of what are they going to be able to do at the end? And if we know we're about to watch this video that you just watched, I think, do we all agree that this is a pretty exciting or a positive or a soulful video? It has some good content to it. Enough, it's meaty, right? What do we want students to do at the end of, say, 40 minutes? with this video as a main feature of that lesson. I'll stop here. I'll stop share before we go into that lesson.
Maybe one possibility would be that they could retell the story very broadly and briefly in their own words.
Yeah, isn't that something we authentically do when we watch a video? We see someone and say, I saw this video today. And it was so neat. It was about this thing I'd never heard of called the bike bus, right? So the authentic language or the function would be summarizing, talking about something with someone, sharing an experience with a friend, okay? So what will we be able to do? I'll be able to say, I saw a video and it was about this. So summarizing. Great. Yeah. With that in mind, then we start to say, if this is a 40-minute lesson, we're going to cut out certain things. If we go back to that lesson statement, what part, as I share again, what part of it starts to fall away? Meaning the video starts to take a center stage. We're going to share this video. We'll spend enough time with it, we really understand it. So what part of this overview do you think is going to start to have less ground to stand on?
Don't mind versus doesn't matter.
Yeah, I agree, right? Suddenly, I just don't know why they chose that. I don't know why that's important right now. There's not much I'm going to disagree with here. I think it's a great idea. We need to spend time with the great idea. And there may be another opportunity for don't mind, doesn't matter, but I'm not sure this is that time and place. Okay. Video. Yeah, so now we have some room and we don't have to keep everything. We don't have to try to stuff it all in, okay? When it comes to color vowel and enhancing, we can just do a quick brainstorm. What kinds of tools are the everyday tools of color vowel that will help us provide a platform that's supported for speaking? You might think of the chart itself, which I'll change out to now. Having the chart in the room is certainly a good step. But what else might we use to enhance a lesson?
Organizer.
The organizer. If you don't already use the organizer, it's available on our homepage at colorvowel.com. And right here, it's also in the chat. I've just given you a blank Word version of the Color Vowel Organizer. If you don't have Word, you can simply watch what we do in this session, but I gave it to those of you who can open that. If you can open that, go ahead and do that now, because I thought what we could do, and one thing I recommend to teachers is to basically prepare your lesson with a little bit of a kind of a blank slate about where it's going to go. We know we want students to be able to talk about this video, but what we don't know is exactly what words come up. We've only listened once. So we're going to listen again, and you can take out your Color Vowel Organizer and simply type into it and let the challenge of typing into it be the pace at which you collect words. So you don't have to collect all of them. It's just as soon as you finish writing a word in a given category, keep listening and type another and type another. And let's just see how that feels for us. Is that clear what we're about to do?
I don't think I can type
Okay.
block, type that fast. And first of all, I had to think of the word. Which one is it? Okay, it's white tie. All right, great. Now I have to go find white tie. I can't keep up with that.
Then let's do it
together. I can write them on paper, but
that's okay. So what if you have a launch pad, or if you have a blank or even just a piece of paper, you can take it out that way. But what I thought I'd do is just demonstrate a bit of how I go about taking on a new topic. So it might be that you observe this. And for those of you that want to, move into this challenge of typing while listening, it has its own benefit too. So Teresa, no problem at all. Okay. What I'll do is this time I'm going to share the whole screen. You're going to see the video on one side and my Color Vowel Organizer on the other. And we'll just kind of see how this goes. I've already done this once, by the way, so I know it's pretty satisfying. So here we go, desktop. And I think that's about right. Okay, here we go. I also, by the way, I changed it to 0.75. And that's a pretty handy strategy for me in real time doing this, as well as for students, because it just slows the pace a little bit, but it's still very natural and authentic. Okay. So 0.75 is great. Here we go.
This year we've had a ride that was 170 students, which is over 30% of the school community students participating. And they just love it, you know, the joy that they have to see their friends, you know, just like having a great time, powering themselves, and bikes create freedom. It was a huge success. 75 students participated. And since we had parent volunteers and there was a lot of support, we decided to keep it going every Wednesday for the rest of the school year. Our principal has definitely mentioned, and parents and teachers noticed, that on bike bus mornings, the kids get into the building so much quicker because they've kind of had that time to socialize, to get their wiggles out. And by the time they get to school, they're ready for the day. The kids are so deserving of all this attention. And if we can inspire more communities to think about how to support active transportation, and you know, we get more families connected and out of their cars and riding bikes together, that's a huge win for the children that, you know, get to participate. This is something.
All right, I'm going to stop there for the sake of time. Now, let me just stop share there. Hi, everybody. All right. How did that feel? Those of you that were able to type into your document, how did that feel? How many words did you get? It's not that stressful, right? Hi, teacher Shelley.
Hi, I didn't get nearly as many as you. You are quick.
See, for me, it felt like a walk, and I was like, oh, I'll write this word, I'll write that word.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I was doing pen and paper, but it was, yeah, a little slower than yours, but that was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something about it.
Paper, I got 24.
Say that again, Erin.
I did mine too. I already had a chart printed, so I wrote it in pencil and I got about 24 words.
Great.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It is. There's something just very enjoyable about it, right? I think it takes a little practice. It takes spending time, you know, and Erin's in the level 1 practicum course right now. So I'd say she's sort of immersed in this way of thinking. And so that's part of the speed too. But I think this is the kind of thing you can sit down and do this once a week as a teacher, just to keep your own, say, real-time phonological awareness in place and developing. And I don't know if anybody was watching me. I noticed myself make kind of a funny error, and then I fixed it when I noticed it. Did you notice the error that I moved? I moved a phrase. I don't know if anyone was watching me type, but I typed physical activity and I put it down here. I heard and I said physical activity. And then I was like, it's not black. And it was just me noticing the act of activity long enough to write it. And then as I flooded in my mind, black activity, I was like, I moved it right up here. Okay. So it's just, again, it's sort of retuning my awareness to the ears instead of the eyes. Any other thoughts on that process?
I did not record Wednesday the way the speaker said it, which I guess to me, I heard it as red pepper. I recorded it how I know I say it, which is silver pin.
And yeah. Okay, good. So you're also as a teacher, you're playing between how you say things and how you perceive them and how the speaker might be saying things. And I think that's appropriate, right? We can only teach from the way we speak, and you won't remember the sensation of saying it as a red word if it doesn't come naturally to you. Okay. They're both right. Okay. And many where are you from, Erin?
Louisiana.
There you go. Okay. And I try to ask that question openly. I was about to say, if you're from the South,
Right. The pin.
Yeah, the pin merger. So all those words with N, when they're red for a lot of us, will move up and sound silver, including friends
And
and attention, okay, and so forth. That's great. That's fine. Any other questions? When you have something like this, now that we know what the real words are, we can go back and again, we can look at that lesson plan and say, okay, there happens to be a word bank in that lesson plan, by the way. So we can look there and just see. Meaning part of working with any existing or pre-written materials is deciding how much we can really trust in them, feel good about the way they're designed, because we're all people. Somebody designed this. How do these words, let me do a whole share. This is interesting. A whole screen share. There we go. Okay. So how do the words and phrases on the left compare? Like how much of a match is there? It's a lot.
got two the same.
I got Earth Day right there. Bike.
Yeah. Bike.
I didn't really hear cycle in
I
this.
got cycle.
You did. Okay. So it was in there. Great.
Okay.
Participate. We got that. Yeah. Climate change. I missed that one. I know they said it because they said climate. He said climate change. And then he said climate action. And from the first time I ever did this. So climate action. He said, this is actually climate action. I thought that was a neat contrast between climate change and climate action. See how one is a compound and the other one behaves more as a adjective noun combination. That was kind of neat. Everyone see what I'm talking about here? Yeah, that's neat. Okay. So these are the real words. We can say, okay, this is okay. Remember though, that this is a low intermediate lesson. And part of me sort of wondered about, oh my gosh, my eyes are I'm so tired looking at all of this. I have to say, like, there's something about it that's just a lot on a heavy load in my mind. Who feels the same way? Can I see a raise of hands on that? Yeah. So part of what I like to do with lessons, just say, let's cut this in half. Pick half of the things and make them the things you like. And decide, do they all have to be on one page? We're not dealing with photocopiers so much anymore. If you're not, if you are, then you might want to save paper and put two things on one page. But the more we move out into a digital space, you can afford to have single documents dedicated to each activity. Then they also know what they didn't finish in that lesson. I'm sorry, they don't know what they didn't finish, meaning it doesn't have so much pressure to get through the material. And I don't put that stuff up front, so they don't know what they missed. And they didn't miss because we dug in the way we needed to. So we're able to kind of slow down, use the time that we have the way we need to, and have them walk away able to talk about this, because I'm going to reserve time for them to actually talk about it. and reflect on it. Okay. What kind of practice can we build around this then? And here, for the folks that are in the room, like Suzanne and Now and Leslie, folks who have trained with me, think about your core classes. The level 2 core classes are yoga, rhythm and chants, spelling exploration, and sound awareness, which is a developmental course for teachers. That's expanding your own awareness, right? So if you just think of spelling, rhythm and chants, and yoga, here's a display question for you. Which of these 3 are you most likely to use to create practice opportunities?
Rhythm and chants.
Yeah, rhythm and chants, exactly. So that's where we really dive into practice opportunities. So a couple of those. In here, we'll draw on.
Karen, quick
yes.
question. Okay, so this is something I've been thinking a little bit about lately with my students. I know we want them to explore the chart and not just shove a lot of things down their throat. But if we went at the pace of my students' ability to decide on a word, then figure out where it goes, we might get 3 or 4 words on the chart. And I'm wondering about how to balance their initiative, their making the decisions with as part of an activity, and then maybe providing them with my list for maybe we couldn't do it together that many words, but I could give them the print off to take home that has the 24 words that I found, and maybe they could play around with them at home, or we could go through them. But if I have to depend on them to say, okay, climate, what do we hear in that vowel sound? We won't get very many words at all on the page. I'm just kind of wondering about the benefits and things of just doing a few words, or me providing more examples for them.
Right. No, you're sort of asking the question between, this process and product, and do we always have to have them doing the entire process? And I'd say, first of all, if we had students do what we just did, how many words would they come up with if they were doing this activity, the listening part? Certainly not. Yeah,
2,
go ahead.
3.
Well, what's neat about authentic texts like the video we listened to is that several words are said multiple times.
Yes.
Right. It's like those, I forget what they're called, but you can look at those word frequency graphics where you can see the word bike comes up several times, right? So they're sure to get bike, ride, bike bus. They might hear that, or students. Whereas others of these might not show up. But what I love about that process is that those are the words that they might not use an organizer for this, by the way, because this is kind of a lot of thinking all at once. This was an activity for you and me, okay? But what you could do is have them simply write a list of the words they hear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then that list governs. It's nice and humble. It's going to govern or sort of fit the space that we have to place them. And you could say, let's place 10 of them, like in your mind. We're just going to use 10 of the ones on their list. So it doesn't have to be exhaustive. And then you can flesh that out with your other materials. So no, they don't have to be the ones placing all of the words. Okay. What you're trying to do is instill in them this notion, I can listen for the stress and I can identify that vowel sound. And then you move forward, because we want them to be able to talk about this video. So we don't want this to become a color vowel lesson. We want this to be a lesson about this bike bus and how we can describe it to someone else, right? And so this is merely one part of your toolkit. Along those lines, the question you ask is really interesting, Erin. And so the other thing I would say is there's a difference maybe between what they're taking home with them each day, which I think it's a great idea for it to be crafted by them at their level. If they can only hear 8 words, then that's how many words they should take home, because that's how many they can practice with right now. If you give them your completed, like this kind of completion, maybe later in the lesson or later in the week, it could be useful, because now they can practice a whole bunch of silver pin words. This is a very silver video.
Mhm.
There's a lot of silver happening, right? This is, as usual, this is a very red video. Red is a very, the most commonly used vowel sound and stress syllables. Yeah, so you could do some active flooding, or you could keep a word wall in your own room, and that's where all of these words live. Okay. So you kind of have two curricula. One is the whole story, and the other one is the words that they wrote down are probably the most salient to them. They're going to, what I love about students hearing and writing is they're going to write down precisely the words they know and the words that they're bridging into. So they might mishear a word, but that still means it's salient, that they grabbed it. They might hear it as another word, like bus would be boss, maybe. But that says that they're in that place where they're ready to grapple with now the distinction between these two, both in spelling and pronunciation. Okay. So they think of them as having, a to-go version of the lesson that they take back and forth to their house. Maybe you're collecting these in class if they don't have files. Sometimes we like to keep students' papers for them so we can use them again. They can take a picture of this, whatever their list is. Then it's in their phone, right? But then you're keeping, and maybe that's in classes where they're seeing the entire list and using it during class. That's an interesting conversation. Thank you. Okay. From here, though, I wanted to kind of just spend our last few minutes thinking about the practice component, because these are the enrichments to that lesson. So we've slashed it by 50%. We're going to pick the written activities that are meaningful. We'll get rid of that grammar piece that didn't make a lot of sense to us. But we want them to be able to talk about this interesting video. But again, we're back on this topic, the objective. So how can we craft, let's see, what can we do with chance? That's where we kind of settled in. What can we do with chance given that this is the language? Here's the vocabulary. In other words, we know we have a function which is talking about something, summarizing it, showing interest. We have vocabulary. Okay, so now the question will be what kind of sentence structures or grammatical phrases will we use to talk about this video? What kind of grammar do we use when we talk about a movie, a video, or a book?
Action, it's action words.
Okay, a lot of action words.
That's tense.
And what kind of tense do we use typically?
Present.
But sometimes present.
Yeah, a lot of times it's in the present. That's just sort of the genre of, and we can see
Thinking of saying the movie was about the people who did whatever, and so they would be the past. The children bicycle to school.
Yeah, we often think that's going to happen, but when we start really talking about it, especially like this video, what was it about? It's about a guy who started a new movement right in Portland. And what do they do? What happens? They go to school. Instead of taking the bus, they ride their bikes, right? And who participates in this?
Kids and parents.
Kids and parents. Okay. So and how often do they do this? Do we remember? How
Every
often do they?
day.
Every what?
Every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday they ride their bikes to work. So notice this feels like a pretty natural conversation, and we're using the simple present tense. Great, because it builds on probably what they already have in place pretty well by low intermediate. Yeah. It might start in the past. This guy started a new movement, but then it quickly shifts into the least complex way of talking about it. And we often do that with books too. There's kind of a genre piece to that. That's neat. They ride their bikes. So we talked about verbs. Let's go ahead and highlight some of that. So they ride their bikes. What else do we have any other? We don't have a lot of verbs in my list. It's growing. Okay. From here though, there are a couple of, let's just finish out. We could do some word-based chants and we could do a phrase-based chant probably out of this, right? A word-based chant might sound, and here I'll invite Now and others who are in the room who do chants a lot. Is anybody interested in identifying opportunities for a word-based chant? Word-based chant.
They did use a phrase you don't have up here, is hop on.
Hop on. Good, good, good. Good. Was there anything that was, am I missing anything in brown or just by chance? I don't have to have words in these categories, but I'm curious. I
I
think,
put powering under brown. They were powering themselves on their bikes.
good. Powering themselves. Great. Okay, good. Well, given that, and the fact that I added enjoyable, okay, not an irrelevant word, right? We have enough to make a warm up with this, right now.
Yes, I got one, Karen. You know me. Sorry, my camera's not working.
That's okay. We hear you loud and clear. Go ahead, Suzanne. So what do you have in mind so far?
Well, I love that piece from Wizard of Oz, lions and tigers and bears, oh my. So I'd be doing students and families and bikes, oh my. Students and families and bikes, oh my. Students and families and bikes, oh my. Something along that line.
Yeah, yeah.
Would
I
that
would,
be word based because it's like 3 words were in a row. You would call that a word based or a
yeah,
phrase?
so it's a word level warm up where those 3 words are separate words. And we could then ramp it up to, something that's more phrase based. So I didn't write a lot of phrases here, but 30%, what was it? 30%, 30% is kind of a phrase. Well, there are a couple things. So yes, we have the lions, tigers, and bears kind of rhythm. We could also do an A chant.
Yeah.
Which
So how about this one?
yeah, now.
Okay. So bike support volunteer. Bike support volunteer. Bike support. Bike support. Bike support volunteer.
Great. So I'm going to pull out my cards here. So we've got super handy when you have your image cards. So we've got white tie bikes, orange door support, green tea. What was that word? Volunteer.
Volunteer. Yeah.
Good. Okay. And so, and we learn more about this in rhythm and chants, but once you have those 3 nailed down, now we can go ahead and just point even. So how did it go now again? Do it again.
Okay. So bike, sorry, bike support volunteer rest. Bike support volunteer rest. Bike support. Bike support. Bike support volunteer.
I apologize. My computer is making my cards disappear while Now speaks. But we can use the chart. We can use the cards in a lot of ways. We can also, by the way, take a word like volunteer, and really pay attention to that secondary stress, that big beat at the beginning of it. So we can have volunteer, bikes, support, volunteer, bikes, support, volunteer, bikes, volunteer, bikes, volunteer, bikes, support, right? So we can switch the order of those 3 most difficult words from this list and focus in on those for comfort. And then we can ramp it up. So what's this whole thing about? Again, the function is go home and talk about this with somebody. What are some phrases we can use? What would you say to the next person you talk to? What's this video about? Put it in the chat. In one sentence. We're tapping into ourselves as speakers of English to see what we ourselves would do. Glad to know you wrote some phrases, Leslie. Put those in the chat, right? So it's about a climate action initiative. That's what comes to my mind authentically. A climate action initiative. A climate action initiative. Bikes, not buses. Bikes, not buses. A climate action initiative. Everyone can try that. You can mute yourselves. I'll prove that you can do it. You can follow it. Okay. Here we go. So mute. I'm going to mute you, Teresa. Try this for a minute and we'll kind of finish up with questions and comments. Okay. So your students for just a minute, bear with me and see if you can follow along genuinely as who you are. Ready? White tie climate. white tie climate, white tie climate, again, white tie climate, black cat action, black cat action, black cat action, one more, black cat action, silver pin initiative, silver pin initiative, silver pin, silver pin, silver pin initiative. Good. Continue with me. Here we go. So it's a climate action initiative, a climate action initiative. Riding bikes, a climate action initiative, a climate action initiative, a climate action initiative. Riding bikes, a climate action initiative. And stop. We could do that 2 more times. You'd get a whole bunch of practice if that's the phrase we want to teach. Now, I picked kind of a wordy phrase, but that's my wordy, nerdy self, without real students in front of me. What I do with Pure English Practice is this actual kind of demo. If you've never been to Pure English Practice, I recommend giving it a try. It's accessible to everybody who is accessing this today, because it means you went through the teacher community, and the Pure English Practice community is right next door, so to say. So if we could, and then I'll take a couple questions as we finish up today. Let me just show you. If you know the teachers community, looks like this, and go back to your student dashboard. This is a great time to go to, under teachers, there's Pure English Practice. If it says join, that means that you have not joined yet. If it says open, then you're already in it. And you can see we've got a lot of people in this community. So different people show up each time. Coming up, we can see all. I've got next week, we're going to focus in on gratitude, a couple of opportunities there with vowels. I change up the focus of the lesson each time, by the way, whether it's vowel production or stress or linking or intonation. We combine that with a topic. So gratitude is the topic. Cooking, so appropriate right before Thanksgiving. Homonyms in December. And since it's so close to the holidays, we'll do some songs and rhymes with some well-known winter holiday songs. Okay. With all of these, I think on your side, it'll have an opportunity to indicate that you're interested. And when you're interested, you will receive a reminder 24 hours before the event. Okay, great. So today, we took a look at a lesson that's out there. We gave ourselves permission to cut it in half, to get rid of anything that seemed a bit over the top in terms of just looking and writing and reading, so that we could fill in with some spoken English, which everybody needs. We used some strategies. We used the Color Vowel Organizer on ourselves to start with. And then we had a really great discussion, thanks to Erin, about how to deal with the student's cognitive load, which is like a smaller set of those words compared to all the words that you know. And we generally want to hedge toward the smaller number. Anything more than that is the fire hose. So just take their number and a little more to flesh it out and focus on the function, which we chose as talking about it to a friend. We had a chant, we had another chant, we practiced moving from one word to the next, and now we're here. Some pretty productive session. Questions and comments? Helpful? Takeaways?
I'm blown away by your creativity, because I don't think I have any at all. None.
Now, Teresa, I think creativity is just a matter of practice.
Okay. I'll work on that.
I really do. Now, note also the courses, Teresa, have you taken level 1 basic?
I did the level basic. I don't think I ever finished it. I got to the last module or 2 and I stopped, but
finish that up. You have it right there in your hands. Finish it up and come to the practicum. This is where the practicum practice. We really start practicing doing this. And I think it is a state of mind. Anyone else want to speak to that? Creativity?
I don't know. I just want to be in the chant class now.
Well, we just started it. It rolls around. So
On practicum first, or can I sign up ASAP?
You can. Now, we did just start last night with that round. We're actually doing rhythm and chants right now. This is a cycle that we go through every quarter. So in January, we don't teach in December, by the way. So January, I'll be teaching vowel yoga, and then spelling exploration, and rhythm and chants rolls around in March. Okay. I'll show you now. You can actually start planning your professional development for 2024. I'll put this in the chat with this handy calendar. It's interactive. Okay, I'll show that to you in a minute. So yoga is the January course. Making prosody practical is an elective in January, by the way. Okay. Teaching literacy is this month, and that's open to anybody who is in level 1 practicum or has taken the level 1 practicum. Okay. So Teresa, your next step is to take that practicum. The practicum, just to give you a clear vision of how these fit together, the basics is that on-demand course that you've completed most of. Okay. The level 1 practicum is where all the fun and the people are. So, I mean, the videos, I'm sorry, it must get old watching me talk at you, right? So come on over. The coaches are fabulous who teach the level 1 practicum. And
In my practicum, right? Can she join us? I'll even do her orientation for her.
that's true. Actually, really good point. The level 1 practicum this time around, we just had orientation last night.
That's
so the
nice.
course has not started. It starts next week on Thursday in the evening, right, Erin?
Yes, it's Thursday evenings, 6 o'clock Eastern time. 6
Yeah.
to 7:30. No, wait, I'm sorry. 7 to 8:30 Eastern.
Yeah, I teach on Thursday nights, so that's not gonna work.
Okay, so look around in that calendar I
fine.
just posted, and you'll see some future ones are, okay? Good. And then what else? So yeah, you can take prosody practical. Literacy is what's coming up next Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. I teach that with Dr. Barr. If you work with low literacy students, it's a great course to see what a phonics program is capable of, and what it doesn't bridge into when it comes to second language low literacy students. There's a barrier, there's a place where the buck stops that simply does not meet the needs of low literacy English learners. So we're saying phonics can be necessary, but not sufficient, essentially.
What about low literacy native speakers of English?
I would say Color Vowel. I know this for a fact. So Dr. Barr works at the Washington Literacy Center. She brings all of that expertise and insight to this course. And we'll be speaking more at length about that. But what we've found is phonics, again, necessary, but often not sufficient for a different reason, a slightly different reason. So essentially, learners need a way to organize any word that they hear, regardless of its spelling regularity.
Right.
To build this ongoingly as they build up with this very structured approach known as phonics. Okay. So that course is about blending the two in concrete ways. Any other final thoughts as we finish up today? Thanks, Liz, for coming. Appreciate seeing you. Anything
Can I say
else?
something to Erin real quick? Pastor Anita? It works wonderfully with native speakers or low literacy because I work with that as well. And one of the great things is the fact that you can like have words like was be, highlighted with either the picture or just on their organizer,
Right.
those different tricky things, all that. And then for those that have speech issues at the same time, you're also dealing with the speech like I was doing just yesterday and today. So those tricky vowel R's.
Yeah.
Right. I'm
Elizabeth,
wanting
right.
to see how we might expand it where I work, not just on the ESL side, but on the low literacy adult native English speakers. So that's why I asked.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'd love to see you in that course. And Erin, Elizabeth, I want to chat with you. I'm so glad to see you again because I know you've been doing so much with literacy lately. Okay. So let's actually plan a time to talk.
Can I tell you one cute, funny story? My two daughters who are 17 are reading Faust by Goethe, which does not look like Goethe, right? And they didn't know two words throughout their reading. And they asked me, and I don't remember the words, but I told them I did this. And I said, these are, that's a red word or that's whatever. And they looked at each other and they rolled their eyes. And then they said, well, it actually helps. So thanks. And then I said, Goethe is, we're going to say purple shirt Goethe. And they're like, it doesn't look like that. I'm like, I know, but it's purple shirt word. And they were like, oh, that's kind of cool, Mom. And I said, yeah, it's kind of cool. So I used it with my children.
It is. It's great for high academic language where you come across, especially those Greek words. I just wrote my epitome over in the comments over there because that was the word for me. Fantastic, everyone. Teresa, how about you? You have some takeaways today other than thinking you're not creative? I want you to be open to changing that description of yourself.
Well, I'm still new at this. Okay. So, I mean, I've about a year and a half and I teach level 1 and there's a lot of limitations in all of this with level 1, because right now you're just focused on getting them to say hello, hello, my name is, and be comfortable with that. But as far as my takeaways go, I don't think it was on the color vowel subject, but it was this whole idea of using a video because I always reserve a portion of my class for them to talk, and I give them topics to talk about. And sometimes it's successful and sometimes it's not. But I think trying to show them a video and then tell them to talk about the video might be worthwhile try, because I'm still in the trial and error. Does this work? No. Does that work? No. Does that work? Yes, it works. Okay. So, and meanwhile, I'm the only, I co-teach with another teacher who looks at color vowels and goes, and, does nothing. So I've got limited time with them to work with color vowel. And, and I know how it feels because I did that my first year of teaching. I went, yo.
Yeah. When I think about beginners, and we should probably have a whole session on beginners. We haven't had one in a while. When they're so quiet that you feel like, oh, we're just trying to get them to say, hello, my name is. I think that's often a result of having too much in the lesson. Meaning if it can be a smaller amount to learn, but with more practice, that is sticky. And that gets back to chants. Using a chant, when you work with me, we talk about sort of the 3 ways to make a chant really work. It's followable. I made sure you were able to follow me as kind of improvised as my chant was. You were able to do it, right? It was followable. It was useful, meaning it was relevant to what you needed at the time. And it was sticky, meaning it's not drudgery. It's not the same as, I'm going to ask you the same, here's what is your name? And, sort of like that, let's run around the room with some, say these kinds of cards, and I'll say, what is your name? And they practice. My name is Jose. Where are you from? Next card. I'm from Venezuela. Where do you live? I live in such and such. This is a kind of practice that's one way, but it doesn't have a lot of momentum.
Or creativity. I mean, it's
right.
dull.
And the teacher feels it. They're like, oh, we're getting bored. And then we end up bringing in something new. And now it's getting, the cognitive load is too high. And of course they're quiet. So when you find the students, they're actually capable of much more, is what I want to say. Beginning level students are capable of much more than it may seem, but it has to be set up in a way that allows them a lot of structure to step into that space. And that takes practice. But a lot of what you'll learn, and I mean, I'm not here to sell it exactly, but I just want you to know that there's so much more waiting for you that will help cut down on the amount of teacher talk, make more space for learner practice, and more structure so that making that practice work is much more engaging.
It's successful.
Yeah, it has a kind of a beat to it. The chants come up very naturally when you start to implement these, because it's self-propelling. It creates a lot more time for practice. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yes,
I'll leave it at that. Yeah, food for thought. I'm so glad you were here. Thank you, everybody. And thanks for your time today. We'll be coming back together in, what is that, November, what did I say, 17th, I think. for a session on a very different topic of accent equity. But we'll have a lot of fun with it. And it's sort of a precursor to talking about that at the larger level, meaning at the conference that we'll be having next April. That will be one of the themes, but there's a lot of good practical content coming into the conference as well. Okay, hope you'll consider coming. Thanks, everybody.